I'm Jeff Gould. Welcome to the show. I like that story has one goal. It's to give you insight, give you inspiration, give you encouragement. And we do that through stories. Most of those stories come through people who have interesting stories. And Wendy Alexander, her whole way of living is about what you do about a third of your life working. What's the first thing we ask? Well, what do you do for a living? And it pays the bills. It's our identity. We spend a third of our day at work, if not more. How do you hire the right person? How do you know if you're even in the right job? How do we get that whole system to work together in harmony? Well, this is the passion of what Wendy Alexander does for a living. So I thought we'd pull out some interesting stories from her. What's the best piece of advice she's got? What's the worst piece of advice she's got? What's the one question she's going to ask me? All of that's coming up on the show. Thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you down the road. Well, you're going to have a great time today listening to our guest. She is amazing. I have to read this so it's official, but if you just imagine a guru of HR and then splice Wendy's face over it, maybe it's in the dictionary, I don't know, but I'll read it. She brings over 20 years of HR experience in talent acquisition, learning and development, employee relations, 360-degree coaching. Got to find out what that is. Behavioral assessments in DISC, Enneagram, plus a lot of other things. Known for her energy, authenticity, ability to connect people to opportunity. She helps organizations, perhaps yours, build high-performing teams and strong workplace cultures. That's a heavy lift, but she's not done. A dynamic facilitator and speaker, Wendy leads sessions on LinkedIn strategy, leadership, emotional intelligence, customer service, and influence. Passionate about helping people understand themselves and each other, she empowers the individual and teams to build more authentic, effective relationships in work and in life. So, Wendy, to prepare for this, I sent you a bunch of questions in advance. One of them, and we're not going to get to it till the very, very end. You get to ask me one question and one question only. I'm very strict about that. Okay?
That's tough on me.
All right. It's going to be at the very end. But in the first, as we do an icebreaker, I sent you my Jeopardy board. Wendy Alexander, HR guru, what is your Jeopardy question?
It is. I think we have to come back to that.
You have to come back to that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. Let's do this one here. Let's do this one. So, roll this back. We talk about work-life balance. And although you identify with this as a necessity, you also identify it as maybe an impossibility. Am I correct in that regard? It's really, really hard to balance everything in the workplace and in the home place. Am I right?
Definitely. But you just kind of don't know any different. So people talk about balance a lot, but what is balance? And it's all relative. What's
When
a
I
lot?
was a when I was a kid, my dad was an engineer for Honeywell, and we had a phone. It was a landline phone, and he'd come home and he'd take off. He looked like the guy from NASA, the buzz cut, the horn rim glasses, the pocket protector, short white shirt, and skinny tie. He'd take off that uniform and he'd put on his farm clothes because we had a small farm. And you know how many people would call us every night? One, possibly two. The phone would ring. I'd say, Dad. And he'd say, who is it? And you know who it never was? It was never work. And on Friday night to Monday morning, there was no work. My dad's job was a mystery. Once when I was 8, I got a chance to go to the plant where I could see where he worked. And that was the only thing I knew about what he did. Such was the separation of work and home. Now tell me the story again of you and the iPad and the bank boss.
Yeah. Yeah. So back in the day when I was an HR assistant, um, there was always a lot of tasks to do, a lot of busy work. And I always had to go get my daughter or get home to take care of my daughter. And I would say, can I just take the iPad home? We had an office iPad at the time. They were kind of new. It was a big deal. And I'm like, can I just take it home? And that way, at the time I was hourly.
You had one iPad for the office.
Yes, it was
The
a big deal.
office iPad.
It
Okay,
was a
go ahead.
big deal. He got it for us very much as a way to keep me engaged. Like, woo, technology. This was like probably 2007 or 8 maybe. Must have been 2008. And I was like, can I just take it home, because it would help me so much to be able to stop my day, get home, get my daughter, do my thing with my family, and then finish up some tasks later that I could have responded to emails. I'm very much into responsiveness, and it would drive me crazy to leave it to the next day. And my mentor manager at the time, Kevin, who I talk about every day, all day, said, no, I'm not going to let you do that because you're already out of balance. And you think about work all the time anyway. I love that about you, but you need to stay in balance. And by taking the iPad home, I don't think you're going to be able to keep with just getting the tasks done. I think you will stay on it. You'll keep doing things. And he was right. And he always reminded me that back in the day, business, really, especially let's say in banking, was very 8 to 5. There were business hours and you could leave business at work and you could go home and you could have that separation. You might think about things, but it was so much more structured. And he was very into structure, which I am very not into structure. And so, yes, I can get out of balance. And he was right.
Is there a business that is 8 to 5 anymore? I don't know that there is.
I don't think there is. And I think that's probably why everywhere you go, people are stressed out. And there's a lot of talk about being out of balance and burnt out. And there's a lot of, medication flowing and things like that.
Especially if you work out of your home. I mean, because here are the kids, they're right here. And then here is my office right here. When I'm with those kids, I'm worried about the office. When I'm in the office, I'm worried about the kids.
Hmm.
And it's really hard. And you must spin two plates. And of course, it's impossible to do. Hmm.
Yes. Well, and when COVID happened, I really learned that. I had always wanted to work from home. That was kind of a dream of mine until I had to. And I had about 1 month of that, and I was like, nope, I'm done with that. I love coming to the office.
Wendy Alexander, HR guru, what do you think about AI? Just going to drop the bomb. AI, kaboom.
Yeah.
I've heard
Yeah.
yesterday somebody said it's over. It's 10% unemployment. We're going to be broke. And then the other, oh, we've saved me tons of money. You throw in on your opinion on AI.
Well, so I have a lot of Enneagram 9 in me, which means I can hop into almost everybody's perspective very easily. And I have a lot of different thoughts on this, but what I mostly think is there's no stopping it. It's here to stay. Yep, I'm worried about it for many reasons, but I'm also using it and embracing it. Um, I think we've learned a lot from what's happened with using so much technology, especially with our kids over the last 10 to 15 years. But I am using AI right now every day for things like shortening my emails. I can't be concise. That's not a skill of mine. And so I use it to clean up emails. I use it to help expand my ideas and things like that. But definitely, it's something I'm worried about. I think about my daughter. She's going to school for art and illustration and graphic design and things like that. And I mean, I can do a lot of the things she does just by talking into my AI. It's not the same though. And I'm hoping we think about those things and maybe that will keep us safe. I don't know. I think about it in so many different capacities.
Well, it gets close, but it's not the same. I mean, it gets close, but there's an obvious difference. And I think probably one of the, calamities would be the loss of trust. So when somebody posts on a social media this long, well thought out thing, well, that's AI, I say to myself. Nobody spends that amount of time giving this thoughtful response. Somebody somewhere went, give a thoughtful response to this person. Hit, right? Um, I somebody showed me a clip of George Carlin speaking about it, and I said, okay. I sent it to Booker, who runs the background in this. Is this AI? He said, absolutely. And what's interesting about AI, when you think about it, it's a conglomeration of everybody. So it gets the middle pretty well, but it misses the extremes.
Hmm,
In the case of George Carlin,
that's a good
his
point.
voice never left the middle range on this fake program. And he never went high and he never went low because it was the middle of where he was. His facial expression was never, it was just kind of in the middle. And his movements were just also kind of in the middle. And I think this is AI. um, my kids, three of my daughters are in education, and that's a slang term. Kids say AI, which means fake. Or you're lying. AI, they'll say.
Yep, yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's almost offensive to my daughter Ava, because for her, that creation is so important. I did read an article a few months ago that said the safest jobs will actually be creative things like art and music and writing, which I thought was so interesting.
And why did they say that?
Just because you'll hopefully, there's a lot of different careers, but I bet anytime you've cried or been moved has been related to some sort of art, whether it was, for me, lyrics. Lyrics are a big deal, like Fleetwood Mac or
I think my first paycheck made me cry. I don't think art was included in that.
but you know what I mean, or just a beautiful art,
Yeah.
even a beautiful movie.
Hmm.
The things that have to come together to create that, I hope we always respect it. I joke a lot about the movie The Time Machine. Have you ever seen that movie? We had to watch it back in high school.
Oh, this is like the H.G. Wells, that thing? That
Yes,
one, oh boy. I think I certainly read the book. I don't remember and the movie's been made a bunch of different times. Was that
yes.
Jude Law in that, maybe?
Well, and I'm talking about an older version. So it
Okay.
was probably like a 60s or 70s version that we
Okay.
had to
All right.
watch in high school. And I think about it a lot. By the end of the movie, they were in a library and they were like, what is this all about? And everything was locked down and they lost their ability to do a lot of things because they got so smart that they got dumb.
Hmm.
We have to be careful,
I'm going to write that down. They got so smart that they got dumb.
right? Yep, yep.
Sadly for us, AI is listening to this and it's just incorporated that wise sentence of yours, and now it's going to be absorbed by the masses. Say, how long you been hiring people, Wendy?
Oh my gosh. Since probably 2003.
Wendy Alexander, hiring guru. What makes a good hire? Can you tell right away?
Well, I feel like I can tell right away, but there's a what if here. Where I found my success, and this is so important, it isn't just about the person in the role, it's about understanding the job, the manager that's going to be in charge of that person, the team that they're going to be interacting with. That's where I found my success. And that doesn't come overnight. That took years and years. So I'll use an example in banking. It took a while to understand that this is a good hire, this is a good candidate for the job, right? Step one. Step two is what's their personality like and how are they motivated? How do they communicate? And how do they fit with that manager? Because if they have certain needs and that manager is a hands-off person, that might not work. It could be the best team member in the world and the best fit to the role, but if they're with the wrong manager, it won't work. Now, you can move that person into a different department under a different manager and they could thrive, but they could fail under this manager. Or what if the manager and the hire you're hiring are going to work great, but there's a key team member that will not mesh with this person and may cause issues. And that manager may not know how to deal with that. And that I've seen come to fruition. So you have to get really into those details to be able to do really good hiring. So I find that difficult sometimes for external recruiters to do because it takes years of understanding those managers, those team members, those dynamics that are constantly, by the way, moving in each department, in each location.
So an external hirer would be like a headhunter, right? So
Yep.
I need to find this person, and that person moves all the dials and buttons. But you, as an internal hiring person, would say, we're having more success because I can dig a little deeper than they can.
Yes.
Now,
And
I,
by
I,
the
I,
way,
I imagine, Wendy, that somewhere along the line, if the company's big enough, it's cost effective to do this all internally than externally, right?
yep.
Okay. You were talking, I interrupted. You were talking about women, is that right?
Oh, no, I was just going to say that it's not that external recruiters can't be successful, they can, but it's going to take a certain amount of relationship building and hungriness. So even in my past, the external recruiters I've worked with, I have to be very careful about that. You really have to build that relationship and trust. You have to kind of let them into your company if they're really going to help because they need to almost feel like they are a team member that understands those teams. They
Hmm.
can't
And
just be, shotgun affecting it. They
you
can't
said
just be like,
hungriness. Hungriness. What do you mean by that?
hungriness as far as really wanting to understand the team makeup, the manager, the dynamics of that team, the challenges of the role, the areas for improvement. Yeah, there's a lot to it. And I think that's even difficult for internal recruiters.
I was listening to a woman. I was at a funeral I was attending. This is many years ago. And she was saying, and then I sent out the email to the group. And wouldn't you know it? And she says to the group, a baby boomer comes over to my cubicle and says, I see you sent out an email. And then she wanted to talk about it. And everybody in the group, they roll their eyes and go like, oh, don't you hate that about those baby boomers? All they want to do is go and visit you about the problems, they said. And then on the other perspective, well, we just have to work with these younger people. They're millennials, and I don't know what their generation is, but they just don't seem to have the same kind of, I don't know what to say, but it's just harder to work with them. So this is people talking about all different generations. I always argue that it's really the same person. Everybody's the same when they're younger. Everybody's the same in middle age. Everybody's the same, and we just have to figure that out more than throw bricks at somebody who happens to be 20 years younger or older. But as a person whose job it is to hire people, part of me thinks, well, she would want age diversity because that is going to give her the most amount of input. Or I could say, she wants them all the same age, so there'll be less bickering. So, what do you say?
No, you're right. I do want age diversity. I want not only age diversity, but personality diversity because we all have different gifts. And I've prided myself on being trained very well by a boomer who was trained by a traditionalist and very close with my boomer parents. So I feel a little boomerish, even though I'm a Xer, but I have also felt very millennialish. Yeah, I do want a diversity of generations in the place. But the key, just like I say with personalities, is you need all those different gifts from those different generations. But if you don't teach each other about them, it won't work. They'll just be issues. So you have to be very good about generational training to help them understand what each generation has for a gift so you can use each other and collaborate to have the best outcome.
This must require, I mean, is it Monday morning you get around the table and hold hands and you light a candle in the middle? Is there, you sing a song? What do you do?
Nope, it's influence, because a lot of times you want to do some training, you want to do some actual formal training, but you can't always do that. And so instead, you influence. You talk and you share and you tell stories and you do what you can to lift up the skills and the strengths and the gifts of the generation that you maybe need to educate on. So if I had a group of millennials and a group of Zers, I would talk quite a bit about their strengths, but I would also educate them as I could by peppering in reminders of all the wonderful things that a boomer brings to the table.
Do you do this just in ordinary conversation?
Yes, but I'm also a weird person because I'm a very high I. So I'm constantly educating and coaching and again influencing. Um, my mentor used to always say, why were you even talking about that online? Or why were you even having that conversation? If I was telling him about something and some pushback I got, I'm like, I don't know. It's like breathing for me. I can't not educate and share and try to connect those dots. For me, it's all about perspective. And what I find is oftentimes it's not that people don't get along or are so different, it's that they haven't considered this other perspective. And so I am constantly influencing that way. Nothing gets done by pushing. And so I try not to push. I always educate and coach.
To try to draw them in.
Mhm.
Okay.
I joke about it being like religion. You don't get people to think a certain way or bring them to, let's say, a way of thinking about religion by pushing them. That just doesn't work. Same with the workplace. Most things work better when you lead by example and educate and tell stories, which is why I've always loved you, because that's what your whole life is about. It's about telling stories as a way to bring people together, really.
Well, I have a good friend of mine who was in HR for many years. He's retired. But before then, he was a fourth grade teacher. And you would not think that they would coincide, but they coincide perfectly. And let me just tell you a story that kind of exemplifies what you're talking about. Fourth graders have to be taught how to read and write, right? And they're tested at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. And this is a big deal. And nobody really likes to do it. And kids, either they like to read or they don't, right? So this is what he did. And this was not original. He was a guy who studied other teachers and he stole this idea. He puts this big, and he made it out of plastic, 2 mil plastic. He taped it together. It was like a tent inside his classroom that he could inflate with a box fan. And he said, okay, here it is. This is the sustained reading tent. And you've inflated it. And I said, what's that? Well, anybody who wants to can go inside the tent for SSR, which is silent, sustained reading. Well, in every class, there's going to be 3 or 4 kids who love to read. Okay, great. So take off your shoes, get in there and read. And they would. And the people outside the tent said, what are they doing? Well, they're inside doing sustained reading. Well, I want to do that. Why? Because it's different. It was like this gated community, right? In a strange way that they said, well, I want to do sustained reading. So it got to the point where he would actually use it as a bribe to improve a classroom participation. Listen, if we don't settle down, we're not going to do sustain. Oh, and finally, as a treat, he would out of the blue say, okay, all right, SSR. And they would leap into action. And the kids who didn't have a book would run down to the library and they would get books to read and they would all cram in the tent. And he would say, well, how many pages did you read? And he'd say, we're going to read through, a million pages, he'd say. And he'd give them fake dollar bills for achieving all of this they could auction off stuff with. And at the end of the year, of course, they blew the doors off the reading. Their class went from here to here. And nowhere along the line did those kids know that this was a necessary thing that he as a teacher was required to do. And every time I think of that story, I think of every person in HR, every person in management needs to get their people from here to here. How do you make them want to do it? And that's the trick, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I get asked a lot about retention or attraction. And, what I say is it's not really as hard. I've read a lot of articles about this. It's not as hard as you think. It really just takes genuine caring. I tell people all the time, think about the worst leaders you've had and the best leaders you've had. And what was it about those good leaders that you liked? And I guarantee you it's because they took an interest in you. They cared about you. They wanted to help you. It's very, very much like being a parent. I could let my daughter do everything the hard way and learn the hard way. And some things she does, she learns the hard way, no matter how much I can try to coach or, help her kind of finagle. But it matters that you're there to help say, hey, I've been here before, and here's some pitfalls to watch out for. And I see this in you, and I think you're good at this, and I can help you get from A to Z a lot faster if you follow these, because I care about you. And some of my best managers, I never had to be bossed by them. In fact, there's something about me that doesn't necessarily, well, humans in general, but certain profiles really don't want to be told what to do. In fact, you can look this up. It's ODD. It's very much, I could be going to do the dishes, and if you tell me to do the dishes, now I don't want to do the dishes. Okay. We're going to get into some psychology here. But, a lot of my really good leaders, it wasn't even that they had to tell me to do anything. I watched and I learned, and I was like a sponge, and I wanted to make them proud, and I wanted to rise to my potential. And that is the best way to lead.
A friend of mine has it's a pie, and everybody focuses on the side of the pie that has nothing to do with them. But we'll say a third of it is hiring the right person.
Mm-hmm.
A third of it is training the person. And a third of it is leadership. Talk about that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I would. When somebody goes to term somebody, especially in the past when I was involved in that more, I always say coach to success. Make sure that if you do have to terminate that person, you can go to sleep and know that you did everything possible. You for sure gave them all the communication, the tools. You made sure they understood you, not just the way you understand things, but the way they understand things. Why would you want to spend that amount of money to find people to bring them in and just to have them fail and go out? Now, I will also say in my life, I've dealt with people that have stole from the company, that have, hurt other people. Where it had to be a termination, there was no other way around that for the safety of the rest of the people. But if it's simply a performance issue where there's, lack of understanding, make sure that you've come at it from a different angle. again, it's like having children. You don't want to just set your children up to fail and go, hope they figure it out. Good luck to you. You want to make sure you're doing everything. And that sometimes means pivoting so many different ways to figure out it's troubleshooting. What works? How do they need to hear it? Does coaching come better for them through an email, face to face, via Zoom? Do I have to draw it out? There's so many ways. And if you don't have an interest in helping with that, you're not fit for leadership, in my opinion. I'm pretty hardcore about it.
You think it's about you say employees are like children. Well, that's maybe employees wouldn't like to hear that, but if they were parents, they would understand that it's similar. And as sometimes parents will get together at the end of the day and said, "Oh, what do we got going on here?" Well, she's not doing her homework, or he stayed out last night, and you get on the same page. You know what I'm talking about. All right,
Mhm.
let's try this strategy. Do managers do the same thing?
Good ones do.
Good ones do.
Hmm.
Wendy Alexander, hiring guru. Give me some behind the scenes things. So I don't know anything about HR, don't know anything about it. Tell me a little something, some secret sauce that me, the average person on the street, didn't know.
Um, I think it's important to know that good hiring really does have to do with marketing. So I've joked for years that I probably should have never went into HR. I'm not very compliancy. Um, Rules aren't my favorite thing, but I love selling and marketing and influencing. That's what good hiring is. You get the word out. Um, Not just the traditional way of marketing, but word of mouth. It's huge. I can't tell you, just from me even posting online or talking to people or having a huge network and just being passionate about what I'm passionate about, how many people over the years in this area have come forward to try to work at the places I worked at just because they know how passionate I am about things being done right, or good leaders or good culture. And that's really marketing, but not in a sense of like I made a flyer and I went and hung it around or put up a billboard, but truly PR, talking about what matters and being associated with that. That's one of your best tools for hiring. Having people that are out there marketing for you just naturally and organically through their family and friends. They love to go to work every day. They're not sick on Sunday night when Monday is coming. That's a big deal.
I would say from the hiring perspective, boy, it really is not pleasant to hire anonymous people that you have to look at their resume to make that work.
Hmm.
That's a heavy lift. You feel bad for the guy who come in and they spent all this time. I don't know if do people even use resumes anymore. When I was sending out resumes, should I tell you a funny story? This is
Hmm.
before a spell check. Wanted to get a job at a radio station, and the bullet point said I hosted over 500 interviews, which was a lot at that time, I thought. Anyway, I lost that resume. I picked it up like about 5 years ago. It turns out that when I said I hosted 500 interviews, I left the T out, and I never did catch that typo. And I wonder if that caused me a lot of jobs because I said I hosed 500 interviews. I wonder about that sometimes. Hmm. The things
That's
we
interesting.
learn.
Well, I guarantee you, it depends where it was. Definitely, possibly.
Possibly, yes. So I was told younger people that if you don't really know what you want to do yet, but you need a job, try to get out there before you need the job and see if you can find a culture that you kind of like,
Hmm.
and then see if you can get a hold of the HR person or hiring person and say, "Hey, would you have some time for some coffee? I'd like some advice."
Mm-hmm.
about and then you'll be the only person they talk to that day. And if you're sharp, they'll remember you. And
Yes.
I said this to my son-in-law back when he was looking for work. The old maxim: if you ask for work, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get work. Right? Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think it's true?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the best? Okay. Wendy Alexander, hiring guru. We're going to do a little pivot here.
Okay.
You're going to go on stage
Okay.
and you're going to give me one killer karaoke song. And I don't know if you can sing or not,
I
but when you
can't.
sing that song, you are just going to nail it. What's the song going to be?
It would be Dreams by Fleetwood Mac.
Um,
I would love to
Stevie
be
Nicks.
I'd love to be Stevie Nicks.
Have you
And I
seen
would and I love to date Lindsey Buckingham.
um, let's say you can take. So, would one of my questions was you can take anybody out to lunch anywhere you want, but you got to buy them, and they have to be alive. Who would you take out, and where would you take them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, right now, my answer would be JFK Jr. because
Hmm.
I'm obsessing over that whole situation right now. I've obsessed over the Kennedys in general, though. So maybe this isn't a new obsession.
What are you
But
gonna?
where would
No,
it?
this is
Oh,
an RFK because that would be an interesting diet. I don't even know what that guy eats.
yeah,
You're talking
yeah.
about JFK. What
Well,
would you? Where were you going to take him? What are you going to
well, I'd be
serve?
living in New York first of all, but
Oh,
I'd live
okay.
in New York in the '80s.
Oh, well, wait. Are we talking about John? John?
Yeah.
No, 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 no. He has to be alive today.
Okay, alive today.
Yeah.
Alive today, it would definitely be Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Hmm.
Now, where are you going to take him out to eat?
I would go somewhere in New York City.
Okay.
Um, the fanciest place. I don't even know where it would be, but I would look it up beforehand, and I would find the best place that was the highest up in the highest
Okay.
building.
Now you know you're buying.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
that's okay. It'd be
What's
worth it.
what's your question? You're going to ask
Yeah,
him
my
two questions, and you know what? He's going to say, "Can I be honest? Can I tell you the truth?" And he's going to give you the truth. So, what are your two questions?
yeah, he
And
can't
you're going to
help it.
put that Wonder Woman lasso of truth around them, and he's going to lay it out. What are your
Hmm.
two
Hmm.
questions?
Yeah, yeah. It would be. Did you think you were gonna do this? Go into politics? Did you think you were gonna do this? And if so, when? When did you know? Because I don't know that that was always a plan. Maybe it was. I'd like to
Hmm.
know. And again, if the truth lasso is coming out.
Sure, absolutely.
And then, are there aliens? And give me the down low about that. I want to know all about it. Oh, but also I
Yeah.
want to know about the JFK assassination.
Oh,
With
oh,
that another one in.
okay. Well, you can only answer two. You know,
Oh, dang it.
everybody should do a Donald Trump impression. I don't know that I can.
I
We
can't.
say,
I wish I could
no,
though.
it's one of the, we have a few more years to get it down. Everybody's going to be able to do one by the time he's out of office. So, let's say you can master a language or an instrument.
Um,
This is any language, and I mean you can nail it, or any instrument. And people will go, wow, you are so good at that instrument.
it would be a language. I've already mastered a clarinet. So, um, it would be Italian. I would love to live in Positano, even if it was only for a few years and I'd want to speak the language.
Right. With your hands. I guess the
Hmm.
Italians like to use their hands.
Yeah, I
You
wish
play
I
the
was
clay.
Italian.
Yeah. French or Italian, right? And then you go to a restaurant and you just lay it out. Well, and Italian is the language of music and romance, right?
Yes, and art.
Hmm.
And there's lemons around and olive trees. And people are a little bit more balanced there. Back to our balance topic.
Well, I think we would like to think so. Maybe everybody's a hot mess. I don't know. It's a good question.
Well, they take naps, so that's
Well,
exciting.
I like to say, you know what? I am a very balanced person. I need to record this segment and lay it out and put it on a clip for my wife. I would say Wendy Alexander, HR guru, naps in the workplace and go.
No, I can't even really nap in real life, but I would like to just rest for a little bit and maybe digest my food after lunch. That would
Right.
be fun.
So you see behind me
Mhm.
my shelf of books. Um, I have a metaphor. I call it like the 100 best books. And my goal is to get 100 books that have made a great impact in my life, fiction or nonfiction, right? And then if one is better, then I got to take one off. One of them's going to get knocked off. For example, that red book there.
Mhm.
That's the great big joke and riddle book I got when I was 8 years old. That might get bumped off if a better book makes the list. What do you like? What book would you recommend that may knock one of these off?
I have three, but okay. Um,
Three. All
the
right, we can do
12,
it.
the 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. For me, that was life changing, so much so that every once in a while I will take a summary of the chapter and put it on my Facebook and LinkedIn and help guide people to it because it's so life changing to me.
Now wait a second. Is this the book that number 12 was about about skateboarding? Is that it?
And he talks about, yeah, and he
Okay,
talks about the,
I saw that. Wait, okay, and I just checked out. I said, "What do you?" I refuse to admit or believe. Okay, so explain that and sell that to me because my arms are crossed on that number 12. And tell me what it is. It's something about you got to learn how to skateboard.
yeah, I can't, I'm not very detailed into that one, to be really honest with you. That's not really, let me tell you why the 12 rules for
Okay.
life. It's basically because he pushes the understanding that life is not easy. So, step one, life is not easy. There's going to be challenges and you have to make the most of it. But I love some reality checks because I remember growing up and just being so stressed out thinking about, I have to get through school and then I have to get good enough grades that I can get into another school and then I can get through that and that's going to be hard and it's a whole bunch of work just to get a job because I have to try to get a job just to be able to work every single day for the rest of my life until I die. That was what my like feelings were. I've been very deep all my life, okay? But here's the thing. Once you understand that life isn't meant to be easy, that was never the plan. But there's so many wonderful things throughout and that it's actually in the struggles that you find the most happiness and the most fulfillment.
Yeah, so I will talk to younger people about that. I'll say, how many of you play tic tac toe? And the answer is like few. Why? Well, because it's easy, which means it's boring. Easy is boring. Boring is easy. I
Yes.
run into this when I talk to people who are thinking about, well, I worked hard my whole life. I can't wait to retire.
Oh,
And it's interesting to figure out what they mean by that word. But when they say something like, I just want to take it easy, I just don't think that's a good strategy.
I
I think
agree.
I think you got to take it hard. You will get some help in that regard because every year as you get older, life does get harder because the body starts to wear out. There's only so much miles on the chassis, so your life will get hard physically. There's just not really much you can do about that. But to medicate that with, you know, watching TV and you know, watching, I can't tell you the number of funerals I've done that are sad because it wasn't that they died. It's that like 10 years before they died, they stopped living.
Agree.
And I can't, you can't say that. I
I
mean, to
worry
them.
I worry
Yeah.
about it a lot. I worried about it with my mom when she retired. My mom is my same personality. And I've tried to teach my daughter this too, that I remember when she had her first high school job and she would kind of dread going and, the customers that would get upset and all those kind of things. And I'm like, it's kind of like being in sports or, having a job. Sometimes it's the camaraderie of being in something together with some other people because there's always going to be customers that come and rip you everywhere you work. It just is what it is. And but having that experience and starting to build character and toughen up your skin, it really matters. And those are still little dopamine accomplishments that happen.
Hmm.
And it's the
Hmm.
same with living. And I worried a lot about my mom. My mom would be like, it'd be so nice not to have to go to work. And she was a pharmacy tech for years and years, and all the customers loved her. And she had great coworkers. And yep, there was, people that maybe irritated her at work or something like that. But she had so much fun. There was so much good around all of the even irritation of, getting up and getting ready and going to work.
And she did retire.
She did.
And
Yep.
how'd that go?
I don't feel like it was the best. I feel like she was sadder a little bit without having her coworkers around and her customers and things. And luckily, she had good friends and things. But my mom just passed away unexpectedly last May, and so I think about that a lot. Like what if she would have still been working? And who knows?
Hmm. What's her name?
Connie.
Connie?
Yep.
Yeah. That's one of the behind the curtain things I picked up. When somebody has lost somebody, and people usually change the subject and they move on. Well, then it's like the person didn't really matter, right? So I always ask the name of the person, and I always say, "What's something you liked about Connie?"
Yeah, everybody loved my mom for real. Like she was probably as close to a saint without. My mom always said too. She's like Wendy. I know. If I tell her some things I was going through about, something, and she'd be like, I was fun too. And she really was. Everybody liked her. So
Hmm. You give me one book. There are two more. You said you
okay.
had three. So there was the 12 Rules of Jordan of Life by Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, that's a big one. Catcher in the Rye. I tell people to watch or read Catcher in the Rye. I had to read it in college at SDSU my freshman year, and I was bummed about it. And I got about a chapter in, and I was obsessed. And
Okay.
I've tried to make everybody read this book. I can still read that book and die. I'll just post quotes. It's the best.
Is it Holden? Is that the main character? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, and he
Yeah.
swears in it, and it's
Oh, like a
hilarious.
sailor.
It's
I
the
think I read
best.
that. My brother got that in high school, and I liked to read when I was a kid. I read it when I was like 12, and my jaw dropped. I mean, because if language is salt, that was the saltiest piece of writing I. But you come to realize that he's just trying to cope with it, and that was like his coping mechanism. I should read it again.
Oh, so
It's been a
good.
long time.
I put it
Yeah.
on my Audible and listen to it every once in a while. Um, and
J.D. Salinger did another one on like 12 short stories, I think, or nine short stories. And I think with Love and Squalor by for S. May with Love and Squalor is one of the books I read. Anyway, he had a gift. He had a gift for writing.
well, and when I had to read that book, it was to do a research paper, so we had to write about the connection to all of the serial killers that's their favorite book. And so my
Okay, now,
yeah,
serial killer's favorite book
yeah, there's a lot
is
of them that
Catcher in the Rye.
look it up, look it up. And specifically, I'm losing his name all of a sudden because menopause. But the guy that killed John Lennon.
Huh.
Yep, look it up. And so I wrote a whole paper about it, and it was all
Did you
about
come
that. the phonies. So people that are obsessed and feel on the outside and not a part of something, and upset with the popular people. And so in this case, the killer was obsessed with John Lennon. So of course I had to go to that building in New York City, of course. And then there's a monument across in Central Park as well. It's all related.
So, note to self: when your daughter is dating, and you go over to his house and you look at the bookshelf,
Yeah.
and you see a dog-eared copy of Catcher in the Rye, which is your favorite book, but
Yeah. I'm
also
like,
does
by the way, full circle.
does an alarm go off a little bit at the same time? You
And by the way, your mom has it listed as one of her favorite books. So,
what's the third book?
the third book is, I'm trying to think what it's called. It's an Enneagram book. The Path. Let me remember it.
Your days are numbered. Huh?
Enneagram. It changed my life, but of course I can't remember it. It's a great book. I'll get it to you. I'm going blank.
No, you're good. While you're
Yeah, it's a
doing
book
that.
about. She's got one book that is about your Enneagram, and then the next book is about relation to each other, and
Hmm.
it's so interesting. I learned so many things from it. For one, my style likes to process out loud, which again, you've lived with yourself since day one. So sometimes until you're older, you don't realize that not everybody operates or thinks or communicates or is motivated the way you are, or even has the same skills as you. You might notice somebody else with other skills, but you think everybody else also has your skills. And
Hmm.
sometimes later on, you start to figure out, wow, those are unique to me or unique to people like me. So it was eye opening, really. And I read that probably 8 years ago.
Hmm. Are you good at kind of putting people in those numbers? Can you look at them and go, I know this guy.
Yeah.
You're a
Yeah.
7. I
Yeah. I'm
know
pretty
you,
good at
Jeff
that.
Gould. Yeah.
I'm better at disc, but then I start to relate and go, well, if you're a 7 on
Hmm.
the Enneagram, then you're a I in disc. I start to like back into other things.
Um, what's the best piece of advice you ever got?
The best piece of advice I ever got was from my mentor again, Kevin. Um, don't lose yourself. He gave me so many pieces of advice. I have a whole notebook full of them, and he didn't say a lot, but when he did, it was really impactful. But it was very riddly. I always called him the Riddler. Well, I still call him the Riddler. We're still friends. But don't lose yourself. And what that meant was know who you are, know what you bring to the table, have your boundaries, have your line in the sand, as he would say, and don't cross over it because you'll lose yourself. Stick to what you know. You know what's right. And you have to stay true to that because life's going to try really hard to push you out of that sometimes. You'll be challenged and pulled to do things that you won't feel good about later, whether that's to get another job or more pay or, all the things that we can sometimes go astray with.
Wendy Alexander, HR guru. What's the best piece of advice you wish you'd have got?
Hmm. Gosh, I wish that somebody would have told me, and they probably did, but I wish somebody would have told me that it's okay to figure yourself out. You can have a family later. There's not a rush. I remember always feeling this urgency to get married, get married, have that family, lock all that in. I remember feeling pressure, you know, all through my teens, definitely through college. Very stressful. And I wish I would have taken a different approach and maybe, dated myself or got to know myself, tried different things, maybe moved around. Because I ended up understanding myself so much better after I was married and was a mom. I think being a mom helped me to get there, actually. And then throughout my career too, I started to understand what I was good at. And I wish I would have done some of that earlier on. That's why I help so many people now and try to help them with things like assessments and career coaching and connections and helping them with people because I want them exposed, because I didn't know what I didn't know when I was young. I just decided I'm going to be a pharmacist, and I went to school to be a pharmacist, and I got into chemistry and was like, nope, sorry, that is not a good fit. And if I would have known at an earlier age what my gifts are, I could have probably went a different route. But instead it was like, get married, go be a pharmacist. Nope, wrong path.
That is very common. And I'm hoping there's a way to train to that. But I would say, generally speaking, for somebody in the first quarter of life, to understand that you're not really going to understand yourself till maybe you're 25, maybe when you're 25. And that means it's absolutely okay to not really know what career you're going to pursue until that time.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of dissatisfaction in the careers that require high IQs or high intelligence. And this is the reason. A kid's 14 and Uncle Hal comes up and says, you're doing pretty well there, Jimmy. You should be a lawyer, or you should be a doctor, or you should be a pharmacist. And Jimmy goes, well, I am good at school. Okay. And they decide when they're 14. Okay. And because they are smart kids and good at grades, they never really examine that choice until they step out into the workforce with the debt and the time and say, well, I guess this is what I am. And they weren't given the blessing of a you or I, who I did not have the acuity to get into that job that maybe wouldn't have been good for me anyway. And then the other thing I would say is, when I talk to people and I say, well, what ultimately, what's your tuning fork moment? What is the stuff that really gives you passion and you're really, really great at? And you could do this for nothing for the rest of your life. A lot of those people will say, yeah, I didn't really figure that out until I was in my 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of, and I did a little piece on this with some napkin rings. I said, well, what if in the first quarter of life, you just, tried to figure out yourself the best way? And the second quarter of life, well, you're going to raise your family, and that means you're going to get busy. There's mortgages and other things like that. And I understand the pressures but then allow yourself to, when the kids are, out of school and the house mortgage is looking more manageable, to say, okay, all right, now what is my third career going to be? And then it's going to be something you're passionate about. And you can do that. Well, you can do it till you're 80, right? If you're really passionate about it. I'm not talking like 90 hours a week, but I'm talking about, like your mom, for example, right? To spend time. Well, I don't know what else I would do besides count pills. Well, that's not quite true. What would you actually do? And then she could find something that would, be more meaningful and more fulfilling and more joyous. Yeah.
I think about it a lot, especially because of the job I'm in. And I say it all the time when I do trainings. This is so important to figure out what you want to do, because even when you love your job, when you get to do the things you love, there's still going to be yucky things about it you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a lot of time you're spending doing this. So getting that figured out is so key. But what I wish I would have known is that there were going to be people and things and experiences along the way that were going to shape and help get you to that, because I constantly hear people in their 40s, 50s, 60s that do not know what they want to be when they grow up. They just picked a job that was going to provide. I have a lot of friends that are in accounting and finance, but their personalities and their gifts are completely opposite of that. So they do it and they're good at it, but it doesn't fill their cup. And at the end of the day, their energy is low because they had to stretch that rubber band to do things that wasn't their favorite all day long.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so then they have hobbies that help fill that cup. And, you're fine. It's okay. But imagine your life if you got to do the things that you really love to do. And by the way, you'd probably make a ton of money because you were so passionate about it.
You can do the calculus and think about it. Let's just say 55. Well, I can't do this. I can't just find a new career when I'm 55. And I actually ran through this myself. I said, okay, now wait a minute now. If you really, really love to do it, how long could you do it? Could you do it till you were 80? Oh, yeah, I guess I could. Well, imagine if you did it and you got paid half of the amount of money you make right now, maybe even a third of the amount of money you make now. Would the money work out? Well, I guess it would. And then ask yourself the question, do you think you'd make a third of the amount of money? I mean, can't you maybe say you'd make twice the money?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're really, really passionate about it and you love to do it. I met a guy a month ago. I'll have to interview him because he's an interesting guy. What did he do? Body work. I mean, body work on cars, body work. Bondo, we're talking that kind of body work. As a hobby, he would paint cars. Okay. Finally, he gets laid off at his umpteenth company, and his wife says, why don't you start painting? And he picks up the brush. He says, this thing is not a job, and he throws it down. Well, here is what or you find out. He's really good at painting cars and people. He's just one of these, I want to say, let's pick a guy who's good at, it's Harry Redland, we'll say, or Norman Rockwell. He has the ability to paint cars and people and outdoor scenes.
Wow.
So he goes to, what is it, the Barrett Jones or some sort of fancy car auction place in Arizona. The people who know what it is, they're shouting at the screen right now.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
He goes there and he says, so what's your favorite car? Well, it's a 1974, and they say the name. He knows exactly what it is because he did body work his whole life. Was that your first car? Uh-huh. What were you doing at the time? I was in the military. Which branch of the service? What was your rank? Where'd you meet your wife? Well, I met her at the diner in downtown Fresno. What was the name of the diner? Do you got a picture? Yeah, I do. Got a picture of her, got a picture. And then he makes a painting where this young guy is getting out of that 74 whatchamajiggy. And there's his wife walking down the sidewalk. And there is the cafe.
Oh, wow.
Well, and I mean, okay, so it sells itself.
Yeah, for sure.
His wife had to drag him into that because he refused to consider that what he loved to do as a hobby could ever sustain him. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time.
So I sent a bunch of questions out, and we're kind of running low on time. So I'm going to kind of wrap these up.
Okay.
Is there a question I sent to you that you said, boy, I sure hope he asks this question, and I haven't asked it yet?
You asked most of the ones that I would like you to. But I would like to ask you a question when you're ready.
This is the question. This is the last one. You get to ask me one question.
Okay.
One question only.
Okay.
I am ready.
Okay. Oh boy. What is your biggest regret?
Hmm. You know, sometimes you look at the timing. Why didn't I do something earlier, et cetera, et cetera? And then you say, well, I probably wasn't ready, right? So maybe I should have pursued my current passion of being a storyteller, years earlier. But I don't think I had the life experience, right? I am not a risk taker by any way, shape, or form. And I look at the life I'm leading now with astonishment. I mean, I took a 95% pay cut to be a storyteller with no benefits, by the way. In HR, you'd appreciate
It's a
that.
big deal. Yeah.
And at the time, and this was just before COVID, and I thought to myself, wow, what if the timing was off just a little bit? What if I had the courage to try that with COVID happening? Yeah. And so I think what I'm when I think about it in the quiet times, I marvel at how close I came to having a life of deep regret. Did that answer your question?
It did. It's funny. I met you around that time too.
Mm-hmm. If you look at I think all of us in our life, we like canals. Canals. You just dig a ditch, you line it with concrete, you go from A and you go to B, and we should be there at 4 miles an hour, blah, 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 right? But life is not a canal, it's a river. And it is a winding, winding river. And if you were to look at it at the side, you'd say, well, it does, but it always goes downhill. But we only can see it from above. And it just seems winding and circuitous. Um, and as I say sometimes, I am not satisfied with the progress, but I'm content with the process. And anyway, this little project that we're on is my attempt to talk to people who are interesting, because interesting people have a way to give you insight and wisdom. And you can pull it's like, sorting through some sand. Oh, there's a little nugget I can take out of that. There's a little, and you just put those off to the side. And if I just talk to people like you enough, oh, I like that. That's good. Oh, I have to read that. That's good. And then I've got something that's really kind of cool. And if I share that out, then maybe people will say, hey, I'm tired of doom scrolling through all of the muck and, whatever in the world, right? Hmm.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Wendy. And I know what a premium your time is. So I want to thank you for the gift of your time and presence. Have a great day, and God bless you.
Thanks for having me.